I was scrolling through X the other day and I came across this video.
It's a big day because she's going on her first date.
The video features Jonathan Saccone's daughter, who happens to be trans, and she's talking about going on her first date. Watching it kind of triggered something in me, and it made me want to create this video where I sort of unpack it. So I made a little Instagram video where I explained how this content is simply rage bait or outrage farming. I explained how essentially it's like a strategy that influencers will use to grab attention. We exist at the moment in a hyper-competitive, ever more saturated space where attention is the hot commodity, and it's never been harder to get. So sometimes people will do rather egregious things in order to get your attention, because your attention has a lot of value to it. So if you can manage to somehow capture attention in this ever more crowded space, then, well, you're gonna make money from that. You get attention, you get money. The more attention you get, the more money you get. But bubbles tend to burst. Our bubble burst a few years ago, but luckily when things were good, we bought this house and now we're able to sell it and downsize and move to Portugal. So we're good, we have our escape plan. The problem here is that if you're the type of person who likes those big cars and those Louis Vuitton handbags and enormous houses, that can complicate things because you'll find yourself trapped in a cycle, constantly trying to keep up with your opulent lifestyle. And how did you get all of this opulence in the first place? You got attention. People paid you attention. Because your attention is essentially time, and time has a value attributed to it. It's why they say pay attention or spend time. What do you need more of now to keep it all going? You need attention. How do you get that attention? Well, you create content like this. Am I making this video right now because in some way I'm jealous? I mean, after all, they are far more relevant than we are. They're far more financially successful than we are. They're far more popular than we are. Yeah, they have more haters, but they have a lot more people that like them than we do. Am I in some way jealous? And I'm making this because I'm a jealous man. I need to consider that, because I don't want this video to have been manifested out of that place. What is jealousy? It's being envious of somebody's achievements. Am I envious of their achievements? God, no. Why am I talking about this when this content was specifically designed to make people talk about it? By creating this video, you could say, well, I've just fallen into the trap, but I'm going to try and create it in a way where I see the trap and I just try and walk around it. I'll start by saying I don't believe in absolute truths. The human experience is just a bunch of atoms moving with our interpretation layered over the top of it. I see it all as cause and effect happening within a deterministic framework. So everything I'm about to say is nor right, nor is it wrong. It is just my own interpretation of things. We've always been like adjacent to them as family vloggers. So I kind of feel like I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this, but I want to talk about it without sounding like a massive hypocrite. And I also don't want to try and moral grandstand here. I just want to explain, as somebody who does something very similar, who wrestles with the same ethical questions, how we rationalize it and how we come at this. Because I think now is a good opportunity to finally sit down and have a candid conversation about it. Do I personally perceive him as a textbook fucking sociopath? Yeah, of course I do. But I don't think he chose to be that way. In the same way I didn't choose to be tall, handsome, and interesting. We're just byproducts of circumstance. That's why I'm so conflicted, because on one hand I'm thinking I should call him out. He's given us family vloggers a bad name. But on the other side of the coin, I'm thinking this is just pointless at best and virtue signaling at worst. Am I overthinking this? I probably am, but I don't want to just make like a reactionary video. I want to do two things. I want to approach this with an element of compassion, but also with an element of tough love. It'd be so easy for me just to sit here and condemn him for clearly exploiting his vulnerable child, who's obviously going through something incredibly complicated and nuanced and private, telling a story that's not his to tell. And if I did do that, no doubt I'd get a bunch of people slapping me on the back, thanking me for speaking out about it, but I'd also be just as bad as him because I'd be exploiting the situation while trying to assert my own moral kind of standards. So I don't want to do that. What I want to do here is essentially zoom out and have a bigger conversation about it while trying to stay as objective as I possibly can. Now, although I bag on about not believing in objective truths and there are no rights and wrongs and everything's just grey and we're all trying to figure out where the black is and where the white is, but nobody really knows. That said, exploiting your child's privacy for negative attention, I'm sure we can objectively agree that that's not a good thing to do.
I mentioned on my Instagram that Jonathan once told me that his haters were his favourite followers because they religiously watched everything he said and did, and they commented on everything, they were hyper engaged, they made him rich. And as somebody who loves turning negatives into positives, I had to respect that, because let's face it, turning people's hate into fancy cars, lavish lifestyles and a big house is commendable. The more money they made, the more hate they got, the more hate they got, the more money they made. Could I do it that way? Fuck no. Because I'd rather not cultivate an audience that hates us.
Let's talk about privacy.
Everyone has a different opinion on privacy. Some people think that kids are entitled to complete and utter privacy, that nothing should exist of them online until they personally choose to upload it themselves, and I completely respect that. And some of us feel like it's okay if we share fragments of our lives, providing it's done with consideration and a semblance of dignity and grace. But what I consider to be dignified and graceful isn't universally agreed on. There's no playbook I'm working to here. It's all down to individual interpretation.
Even though, yes, it's all subjective, I think it is very important as a creator to try and look at what you're creating objectively. Does this in any way feel exploitative? If yes, don't do it.
I do wonder how they justify it to themselves. How they convince themselves that putting out content like this isn't anything other than exploitation of your child. Now, I'm sure they're going to say they're raising awareness for the trans issues, they're showing support for the trans community, they're helping people in similar situations, yada yada. They'll no doubt have framed it in a way that makes them believe that they're doing something objectively good. Okay, it's tough love time. Putting a transgender child in the public eye is deeply problematic. Why? Because transitioning is an incredibly personal and vulnerable journey for anyone, particularly for a kid or a teenager. I have 2 people in my family, in my close family, who are transgender, so I know what I'm talking about. A transgender child is navigating some of the most private and sensitive periods of their life, figuring out who they are in a world full of people who may not be accepting of that, and broadcasting this experience to an audience that you've purposely cultivated to hate you so you make more money is objectively a pretty shitty thing to do. Slapping their personal story online and leaning into it, you're violating their autonomy, you're robbing them of the chance to define their own identity on their own terms. It's one thing for us adults to choose to share a transition story. It's another thing for a child to have that decision made for them. But here's the thing, I don't blame him. I blame somebody else, and I'm going to explain who that is. But be warned, you might not like it.
There's a lot of people out there that just think I'm some sort of narcissistic prick. Looking at you, Mum. And they don't like me very much. I mean, yes, a lot of people just watch thinking I'll watch him for the eye candy, but I don't like him. Well, if you don't like me and you dislike me so much that you want to do something that has a negative effect on me, then the best thing you could do would be unfollow.
I blame everyone who follows them.
You not following would mean that brands are less likely to work with us. Brands being less likely to work with us would mean that we make less money. We'd have more financial pressure on our lives. And here's the thing, I'd encourage people to do that. I do not want an audience of people watching us who don't like us, which is how I differ to this guy, because he likes to cultivate an audience of people who essentially don't like him because they make him more money.
Every comment, every like, every view, it fuels their machine. It gives them more incentive to keep going, more incentive to exploit their children's lives for clicks. Without their audience, there'd be no incentive. The cycle's just going to keep continuing. And so while I can't stop creators like Jonathan from doing what they do, and I can't stop their audience from enabling them, I can use this platform to encourage a different conversation.
Anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bit of a different one from us, but I wanted it to create a bigger conversation and hopefully try to convince a few people out there that this does not represent us as family vloggers. This is not what we're about. A lot of us are far more considered and respectful of our children's privacy. We're very careful and aware of what we put out there. We try and, like I said before, we try and do things with dignity. Yeah, I hope a few of you know that.
I'm probably going to get a bunch of people angry at me who are fans of theirs, but I don't really care, to be honest with you. Like, it's just, if a bunch of people who eat McDonald's want to come at me because I've told them that their food is trash, then go ahead. Sorry, that was uncalled for. That was a little bit of a bitchy remark there. I didn't need to do that. I apologise. Shouldn't have done that. I'm better than that. I'm not better than that. Who am I kidding? Anyway, yeah, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening to my ill-informed opinion on it. I'm interested to know what you think in the comments. And yeah, thanks for being here still.